district conducted some surveys, and as a result of the surveys, we saw that there was very little engagement, particularly when we broke it down by ethnicities of the African American parent. And then when we also look at the statistics of the academics, of the discipline, there were just so many challenges that we need to come together as a village. And so a parent by the name of Ms. Letitia Anderson actually was just really unrelenting on, we got to get the parents, we have to get the parents. And so at the time we had the superintendent who then said, well, let's do this. So this is the third one, and the intent is to address all of the issues so that we can collectively come together, not just as a school district and not putting it just on the parents, but also putting it in the season of it's the community involvement. We have the core team and listed the different areas that we wanted and the topics we wanted to address. And so we have academic challenges, we have health challenges, those things that prevent kids from coming to school or prevent them from staying in school. You know, when you look at the suspension rate, you have more African American students and Hispanic students who are suspended or out of the classroom, whether it's in-school suspension, suspended, than, you know, any of the other categories. So how could we do on the preventive and the proactive? And we couldn't do it just for parents. And that's the reason why we put the information out for our teachers to come, because our teachers are with our kids longer than many days with their parents. And our administrators, and then the community.
But as far as my mentality for college,
I don't know who called, but they called and it was a canned message, but it basically said about this event, and it was going to be at LBJ. And I thought, what a great event, because I'd like to know more about how African American kids think. I wanted to know about what are the opportunities that are being offered in our city.
We are getting our college credit hours from Austin Community College, which is a school located in Texas. So
I met 4 kids today. Oh, that was the panel I sat in on. The 4 kids with top stellar grades, GPAs. They've accumulated anywhere from 45 to 66 hours. They are done with freshman and sophomore year of college. These are 18-year-olds that are going right into junior colleges in their respective universities that have accepted and that they've accepted.
I currently have 56 college credit hours. By the time I graduate, I will have 65 from Austin Community College, as well as 6 more from UT Austin. I would tell other students that are interested or don't know much about the program to go for it. I mean, you're saving your parents a lot of money. You're getting an education for free. You don't have to pay for textbooks. You don't have to worry about that right now. You can be a college student and still be a kid. You know, you don't have to worry about paying bills or paying for college tuition just yet, and they cover all of that for you. And I would most definitely go for it. And you're getting years out of the way, so then you can start what you actually want to do earlier in life.
When you go off to college with the early college high school program, that's half your college cut off, and that's half the cost of tuition cut off. So it helps you in pay and in education, and you're already prepared too. So when your teachers are telling you, oh, you know, to the normal students who aren't in early college high school program, well, you don't know what college is going to be like, and, you know, your college professor is going to be like this and this and this, and this is what college is going to be like, and you're not going to be get away with this in high school or whatever. With early college high school, we know what college is going to be like, so we're not going in blind and shocked when we have to come to the workload that we have to get used to in college.
I was able to get more education, more from what I've learned. And also I met some really great professors that I've met with. In addition, I've gained a lot of, say, trust in terms of with my friends, like in the work area, because there's a lot more to it when it comes to just taking a college class. There's more than just, you got to read the syllabus and you have to take this certain amount of hours in like your reading, your studying, and your homework. You have to put effort into those things.
Some of the sessions, one is talking about how to resolve conflict, in a character-centered way. We have a session on early childhood. The earlier you start, and parents are learning some strategies, some tools, some techniques. We have one on being a parent advocate for your child. How do I advocate for my child? Gifted. We have, the records show, fewer and fewer kids, African American, that have been identified as gifted. Yet we know that there's many kids with those talents. We're helping the parents to recognize it, and then teachers. Special education is another area that we have here. How to enroll your kids early on in AP classes and dual credits. College to career.
I don't have to leave my home, right? I can just use my computer right there at home and take that trigonometry class.
We have one on nutrition. Diabetes is a big factor in the African American community. So how can we prevent our kids from becoming diabetic, which then causes issues in the classroom? How to talk to the police. We have both a policeman from the city of Austin, and then we have a police, that same session, but it's run by our district police.
I think that we start looking at where a majority of our communication comes from nonverbal. Those are the signs, those are the things that we need to be aware of as we're communicating, regardless of who we're communicating with.
It's geared toward the student population, but hopefully parents will be participating in it. I think with what's going on in our national police to community relationships, it's a really important segment that we have, so that both kids can learn how to talk to police, also understanding police officers' communication, or in some cases maybe lack thereof. The thing I like about this job, I got into this job to help others, typically people I don't know, have never met before, so it really gives me the opportunity to actually sit down face to face, have a conversation with a young man or a young woman, and just kind of prepare them for the way life is going to treat them, and obviously how they come across sometimes in the way that they're communicating with others. And a lot of times it's not dealing with adults, sometimes it's peer-to-peer.
We're touching all areas, and we're working to be very proactive.
We're here to learn more about how African American parents can get involved with helping our children to get ready for college, even before getting ready for college, how to do well in school, how to have those conversations at home to bridge gaps so that our children can be successful.
We learned that he should have started in the 9th grade with this journey, but it's never too late. So the wealth of information, as I said before, will help us to rediscover what we should have been discovering 2-3 years ago.
There's always something that parents need to know to do better. Even though he's on his way out, from high school, there's still the importance of, families having conversations, families working together to help the young adults, or soon-to-be young adults, to succeed.
The information that has been presented really it solidifies what I should be doing as a student, and what's the proper steps that I need to take, and just I see the community coming together and really focusing in on African American Black children, Black men, Black young girls.
We believe that when you know better, you do better. And if we can get the information to our teachers and to our staff, then the approach is going to be different. We can't always blame it on the kid. These kids are bad. These kids can't learn. We don't live in that kind of society. But if we can work together, I'm just confident. This is my 40th year in the field of education, and I just believe that I will live to see that in Austin ISD that those numbers are going to increase for the better.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a full day and a good day. whenever you're talking about change, the only thing constant we know is change. And it just seemed that it is fitting to close the discussions today with the individuals who have been instrumental in the various workshops.
Good afternoon. I'm very honored to have the opportunity to work with some of you today during the workshops, and I'm honored to be invited to Austin ISD to participate in this event. And parent involvement is such a very important part of any school system's evolution, because the system exists at your demand. If there weren't children, if there weren't taxpayers in this city, there wouldn't be a need for a school district. So active participation is very important. But there are 3 words I'd like to leave with you. And I have a new book that'll be coming out in June, and in this book it captures these thoughts. When it comes to closing or eliminating achievement gaps, there are 3 words I'd like to just leave an impression on your mind. The first one is responsibility. That our children are our responsibility. It's not anybody else's responsibility but ours. And anybody who shares in that, we have to demand that they meet the standards that we've set forth. But it's very difficult to criticize somebody else if our house is not in order. And in the book, I cite some of the statistics around some of the ways that we've started to drop the ball in homes. African American children watch more television than any demographic in the United States. More time in front of computer screens. There's a body of research called the Home Index. It takes a look in homes and looks at the ratio of books to expensive electronics to cable television, etc. And unfortunately, African American homes finish the lowest on the Home Index. These are things that we have direct control over. Books instead of 56-inch televisions. We don't need a 56-inch television. We can see it on a certain screen size. We don't need it to cover the whole wall. Limiting time that students have on social media. When I was a student in Michigan State University, I thought that the library was the Asian Student Union, because every time I passed the library, it was full of Asian students. I thought that was like a dorm or something. While we were on our way to party on the Strip and go to the bar, the Asian students were there 11, 12, 1 o'clock at night. Evolution doesn't happen by wishing. It starts with an appreciation for the work that has to be done. And Einstein said insanity was doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And unless there's a different commitment, and education is valued as a tool for intellectual development, we can't have one set of standards in the home and then expect our children to be highly educated if those 2 standards aren't aligned. The second word, first is responsibility. The second is advocacy. Is that once I've taken care of my household, now I can be an advocate for my children outside of the household, with those who in the state government who make decisions about funding, who make decisions about policies on educational procedures, what schools stay open, what schools don't close, the quality of the people who work there. We have to be advocates. And the last word I like to leave is activism. That the squeaky wheel gets the oil. That Frederick Douglass said that power concedes nothing without a demand. Every social movement in our country that has meant a change in the quality of people's lives started with activism. From women's rights to civil rights, all of the rights that have been, it's because people said enough was enough, and they put their collective voices together and made a demand. So, responsibility, advocacy, and activism. If these 3 words are embraced, we can greatly increase the level of leverage we have in our public school system and put our children in a better position to be successful in a world that is very, very competitive. Is a world that's not relenting. It's very, very competitive. One last statistic I'd like to leave as I turn it over to our next gentleman. I said this to the group that was present. I grew up in an industrial age where no matter how you did in school, you can go work in a factory. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. That day is over. 25% of last year's college graduates are still unemployed. So if that statistic doesn't scare, these are people who did what the system required. Not only went to college, but graduated, and a quarter of them are still looking for jobs right now. We're going to have to demand something different because our students are competing in a global environment where kids are coming who are very serious. There are no more jobs, no high-paying, low-skill jobs. They're gone. So I want to thank you for having me. I wish you the best of luck. Love you, Austin, but I got to go back to Detroit. And I wish you the best of luck, and I know that the other panelists have some great things to say. God bless.
For those of you who know me, you always hear me say, you cannot overestimate the potential for you to influence someone's life. Don't underestimate your power to change someone's life. One word I want to encourage, Brother Muhammad touched on a lot of good stuff. I want our parents to push entrepreneurship for our children. We spend a lot of times trying to teach our kids to get jobs, which is fine. But a lot of us have gifts and talents. Our kids have gifts and talents. We have gifts and talents. And we're going through life hoping that someone else will see our gifts and talents and ask us to use our gifts and talents to help them grow their business. But why don't you use your gifts and talents to build something for your family, for our community? Why don't we create some jobs? Why don't we use our kids and teach them about investing and saving and entrepreneurship, delayed gratification? Why is this important? Because the world is changing, but also because there's a need for us to step up. Ain't nobody gonna help us. No one's really going to meet us where we are. I'm seeing it around the country. People aren't going to come and say, man, let's just get together and let's help all these black folks. We got to start doing some stuff for ourselves. And I'm starting with my baby girl. My kids don't even have an understanding or a concept of a job. They're with me on the road thinking about growing and creating businesses. I was telling one of my groups this morning, I was teaching, we were at the house playing a game about wealth. Me, my 4-year-old baby girl, my 5-year-old son, 6-year-old, and 7-year-old. We're playing this game, and I did something during the game that my 4-year-old baby girl thought was a wrong move. She says, Daddy, don't do that no more. You're going to get some more liabilities. I said, well, how does she know that word? She says, no, Daddy. She says you need to do something so you could get more passive income. 4 years old. Passive income. She says, Daddy, you got to go to work. She says, but you go to work. She says, but you got to work so we could create more passive income so you could spend more time with us. She's 4 years old. We need to begin thinking about being innovative, entrepreneurs, training our kids and raising them up to not find a job, but to create a job for themselves and for our people. You all, I love you. I'm so honored to be here. I thank God for you. I thank God for the leadership. I thank God for Archbishop, for Dr. Thomas, and for Miss Anderson for her vision for starting this. You guys, it starts with us. Put your heart and your mind into it for the sake of our kids, all right? God bless you.
Good afternoon. At the end of the day, no matter where you are philosophically, if you believe your purpose and your passion is on increasing parent involvement, if you believe your purpose and your passion is on expanding entrepreneurship, if you believe your purpose and your passion is getting more children of color into gifted programs, if you believe your purpose and your passion is getting more students into college, doesn't matter philosophically where you are. The one word is, what's the plan? What it was clear to me throughout the day, beginning with the young people who came into my session, is that I asked them 3 words, or 3 questions. The first question was, where are you planning to go to college? They gave me a school. Next question was, how much will it cost? Most of them said, I don't know. Third question was, how will you pay the cost? Most of them responded, I don't know. Now, I didn't see many of the parents, but if the parents would have been in a session and I would have raised the same question, I would have received the same answers. In doing this work throughout the country, we don't spend a lot of time talking about plans. And there's this huge information gap because we don't talk about plans. We send our children to school and we expect, okay, something that's supposed to come out of it. But a plan means when our child starts in elementary school, there are certain programs that elementary school may offer that other elementary schools don't. So what's my plan to access those programs? When my child leaves that elementary school and starts in middle school, there are going to be certain programs in that middle school that perhaps are aligned with my child's gifts and talents that were revealed in elementary school that should become part of my plan. That when my child leaves that middle school and attends high school, that depending upon the high school, the theme, the focus, whether it's a magnet school or a school focused on music, that now, or an early college campus, that now there's a different set of opportunities that my child needs to identify. What will be my plan to maximize those opportunities? Because we need to start with the end in mind and work backwards, but we don't. With the end in mind, if you're in this room and you wanted to attend Baylor, well, then there's a specific pathway that will get you into Baylor and the full scholarship to pay for Baylor. Baylor is a good example of a school that if you have a certain GPA and a certain ACT score, that they offer you full scholarship money. Well, if you know that in kindergarten, then it means that you spend from kindergarten through the 12th grade to reach that GPA and that ACT or SAT score so that you can get into Baylor. That's a plan. But if you start kindergarten, you get to 12th grade and say, I want to go to Baylor, but you know what? I did not take the right classes, I do not have the GPA, and I can't meet that test score requirement, then I didn't really have a plan. I had a wish. And so often our children are going to school with these wishes. And we as parents, we wish something would happen for them. There was a young lady that we worked with in South Carolina who was announced a couple of days ago as a 2015 Gates Millennium Scholar. 57,000 students applied for the Gates Millennium Scholarship Program. 1,000 were selected. What does that mean for her and her family? It means that she doesn't have to worry about anything. It pays 5 years of undergraduate education, graduate school, and doctoral program. But June last year, she never even heard of the program. She's going to be entering into the Merihoff Scholars Program at the University of Maryland, where Dr. Freeman Hrabowski is the president. Prior to June, she never heard of the program. But in June, once she heard of the program, she put her plan into action. So the question is never, is it too late to create a plan? The question is, when will we create our plans? Because the reality is, for most of us as parents, we can't afford a college education. And the reality of why most students attend college in their home state is because they had no plan. And so the state is the school of least resistance because you pay in-state tuition. At our church every year, we've been doing this for a long time. And we have a cohort of students at Howard University. Their plan was the same. Howard University offers full scholarship based upon your ACT score and your GPA. So our students start in the 6th grade saying, I'm going to go to Howard. When I get to 12th grade, I have a 30 on the ACT and I have a 3.5 GPA and I get a full scholarship to Howard. Then we have another group of students going in the opposite direction. They say, I'm going to Xavier. But when I get to Xavier, I'm going to have the presidential scholarship, which is based on your ACT score and your GPA. So they have a plan. There was another young lady who we talk about frequently. Last year, she applied to 13 colleges and universities, including the Ivy League. She was accepted to all 13 colleges, including Cornell. But when she and her family sat down at this time, and this is happening all over the country now, in April and May, when parents are sitting down looking at the college award letters, then when she looked at those 13 award letters, Cornell offered her nothing. Howard offered her a full scholarship. Now, she started the conversation saying to her father, I really want an Ivy League education. He said, uh-huh. And she said, I wasn't even, because I didn't know if I was even going to apply to HBCU, so I just chose Howard. He said, uh-huh. And then she said, so Dad, where do you think I want to go? And Dad said, well, honey, you graduated from high school with a 4.6 GPA, 28 on the ACT, International Baccalaureate program, so you're pretty bright. Cornell is offering you nothing. Howard is offering you a full ride. Honey, where do you think you're going to go to school? She said, Dad, I think I'm going to Howard. So what I'm saying to all of us is that no matter where you are in the process, what's your plan? And if you don't have a plan, That's the first step of recognizing that you don't know what you need to know, which means now you need to reach out to people who know. That's what today was really about. It was about waking up this morning saying, I don't know anything about that topic. I'm going to go down to that conference and I'm going to learn about that topic so I can perfect my plan. There were so many parents who didn't wake up this morning and come because not only do they not have a plan, they don't even know they need a plan. So if there's anything that you could do, having been here today, is to go back to your churches and your communities and talk to your cousins and your relatives and say, honey, what's your plan? And remember that the questions are the same. What college do you want to go to? How much will it cost? And how will it get paid for? And if you can't answer those three questions, you know you need a better plan. We were in Everman, Texas, and I spoke with students all day. And one young lady really got it. Because we always ask the young people, what's become clearer to you? And this young lady looked up, very beautiful young lady, cheerleader, and had on a cheerleading outfit because they had a game that day. She said, Mr. Wynn, I need a new plan. Most of our young people need a new plan because it is not just about graduating from high school and getting into college. It's about how will it get paid for?
I'm really honored and pleased to be invited here by Dr. Thomas and the school district and those who made this opportunity possible. I've done thousands of presentations, mainly in schools and with organizations, and unfortunately, I rarely get an opportunity to work with families. So this is really a special occasion, and I do hope you'll take back what you learned, as was just said, to the community. One of the messages I tried to share this morning is, it goes right along with the conference theme, and that is, if you teach a child, you can change a child. If you teach a family or a parent, you can change a family. And if you teach a family, you can change a community. And clearly, if you teach a community, you can change a nation. And we really need a great deal of change. My other message is that income and zip code are not your destiny. I grew up in Cleveland and East Cleveland, Ohio. I grew up in a single parent situation. My mother had 3 girls. And although we did not have a lot of money, there was clearly a lot of love and devotion that my mother offered to her children. So for us, it was not about income. It was about this broader notion of SES, or social economic status, or another word would be class. We had values instilled in us that made it clear that we were going to work our way out of poverty, that we were going to attend college, that we were going to live up to the expectations that my mother set for us. Had my mother and my sisters and I listened to all the deficit thinking, the racism, the classism, the sexism that was spewed out socially and even more so in the media, we wouldn't be who we are today. So no matter what your circumstances are, you can rise above that. It takes a lot of will, desire, persistence, and therefore resilience. I graduated from high school. Don't do the math, but I graduated from high school in 1979. And one of the worst days of my life was going to my 20th reunion. I remember hearing from those who were planning that 20th classroom reunion when we were 37, 38 years of age, that out of the about 600 students who had graduated from my high school, more than half were dead or in prison. I was depressed and sad because I was the most successful student. I suffered from survival guilt. From what I can recall, I'm the only one who received a doctoral degree. I came from the same background as many of those students, but the key for me, and I believe this even 20 years after that, almost 20 years more later, that my mother was the one who made that possible. I had some good teachers, I had some terrible teachers, but I had a mother who was involved in education, not necessarily coming to school. She believed that family involvement was what you did at home. So she set high standards. She set expectations. She refused to put a television in the bedroom, no less one with cable. I don't even think we had cable back then. But anyway, no less, with the internet and cable. We were the street light kids or street lamp kids. We had curfews. Before that light went off, we had to be home. Kids in the neighborhood didn't want to come to our house because my mother was going to say, "Where's your homework? Where's your book? What are we going to study?" My relatives didn't want to come for a summer because we had we had to read a book and write a paper on it before we could do certain things. So 24/7, no matter what we were doing, my mother placed a value on education. And she did this intuitively without, all these credentials that some of us think that we need. I focus a lot on the achievement gap, or sometimes I call it the achievement trap, and sometimes I call it an achievement gulf, because too many of our black students, and this is from all educational levels, are caught up in this whirlwind issue of deficit thinking and low expectations, where we are not giving access to what are perceived to be some of the most rigorous programs in our school district. There is no reason that we should be so far behind any other student group. And not just white students, but Asian students, and we're even falling further behind Hispanic students as well. So we're on the bottom of the rung in many of these statistics, and if you go back to the home index, which was just mentioned, a major piece of that is not focusing on literacy or language-rich environment in our homes and in our communities. And that's something that we can do and no one can take away from us. Lastly, I focus on not just the achievement gap, but access or lack of access to gifted and AP classes. I've probably written over 200 articles and chapters, as well as almost 10 books on why black students are not in our gifted programs and our advanced placement classes. And I often feel that I'm this lonely soldier out there venting more than anyone else, and I do mean this, more than anyone else in these United States, about why we don't have, why our gifted programs are so racially and economically desegregated. There are just so many doors that can open when our students are enrolled in gifted programs or just more rigorous programs, including AP classes. It contributes to not just going to college, and any college, so to speak, we need to go to, but I want us also in some of the more rigorous colleges. I teach at Vanderbilt University. This low-income black girl. There's a black girl who grew up in a single-parent home, who graduated from very low-ranking schools. I am teaching at the top 20 university in these United States, Vanderbilt University. I am teaching in the #1 college of education in the United States, Vanderbilt University. I am teaching in the #1 department of special education in these United States. So when people talk about where you've come from, that's where you start off. That's not where you can end off. And I don't want children or people to think I'm an exception because I am doing so well academically or even economically. Again, your zip code is not your destiny. And as long as we are there doing what some of my co-panelists are recommending and more, many more of our students can be in a better place. I don't focus a lot on special education. I'm concerned about that. Right now, we have in these United States over 150 black students who should be in gifted programs but are not. What are those 150-something black students doing? And not only is that a national crisis, it's a crisis here in Austin. So we've got to get involved, and we've got to increase access and be advocates and activists for our students. We can do it. Race does not define how intelligent you are. Income does not define how intelligent you are. We are just as capable of anyone else. And I'd like to see that library that was associated with Asians be full of African American children. That library can be your home. Thank you.
We've heard 4 speakers stand up, is my math right, and talk about education and talk about where we've come from, and talk about keys to success as well as areas we fail. And I think that they all have in common a couple of things. I was blessed, and I think most people who have a measure of success are blessed to grow up in homes where they are loved and taught values and taught how to succeed. And I think if our kids fail, they fail because we as parents have failed. And a lot of times that's in education. A lot of times that's in teaching work ethic. And a lot of times that's simply as setting a standard at which we should require kids to live. My mother and my father, still together after 61 years, taught me at the beginning that I was a success. Mr. Wynn mentioned that if you don't have a plan or a wish, you're more likely to fail. And when you don't have a plan or a wish for our kids to teach them to have a plan for themselves, failure guarantees me, my employees, and my coworkers success. And I'm one to stand in front of you and wish that by the time the good Lord calls me home, whenever that may be, hopefully another 50 plus years, but I'm just saying, that my profession no longer has work to do. And the first step for that profession, my profession, to be unemployed is for we as parents to decide that we are no longer abdicating our responsibility and our duties to those who could care less whether we exist or not, and other governmental agencies. And until we, as parents, decide that even if our plan is only to succeed, even if our plan is to only push nothing but feelings of success to our children and refuse to allow others to take on our responsibilities, we will continue to fail. Our children will continue to fail. And my profession, as noble as it is, will continue to grow. And if my profession is a success in the sense that we have job security and plenty of applications to hand out, we have all failed in the long run. God bless you. Thank you.
In our session today, we talked about anger management and working through conflict. And one would wonder, in the midst of the discussions regarding academics and scholarship and college, etc., why would we want to include anger management in working through conflict? Now, the answer is as obvious as your nose, but sometimes we have to have the obvious pinched just to remind us. Number one is that we let our emotions manage us. If you don't manage your emotions will manage you. So it's incumbent on us to teach in the home first how to manage your emotions, get beyond triggers and get beyond landmines and get beyond explosions and start dealing with secondary reactions so that you don't continue the same thing over and over again. We could put Brother Troy out of business, his whole group out of business, if we would learn how to manage our emotions better. The sad part about the school systems across the country is that they have been labeled as pipelines to prison. And I think to some degree, in certain areas, that may have some truth to it. But, you know, the real pipeline to prison is actually your bedroom and your living room and your kitchen. Because what doesn't happen there leaves a vacuum. And wherever a vacuum is, it cannot exist in nature naturally. So it's going to always fill itself. Therefore, what it fills with are the the scourge. It's filled with all of the things that are negative. And so when our kids are raised up with that vacuum sucking in all of the worst of our society, and they end up on the high side of all the bad stats and the low side of all the good stats, we can talk about education until we blue in the face. It won't change not one thing unless you get your house changed. Anybody listening to what I'm saying? Okay, good. So I think that it was quite innovative, actually, to have this type of a discussion in the midst of all that we're talking about, because parents is the first line of defense. Parents have to, not should, but they must take control of their children. You gotta stop abdicating your responsibility to the classroom teachers. The teachers are not their parents. You are their parents, and your friends who have kids that are not here. You're obviously interested because you're here, but there are so many people that you know, Pookie them. I mean, they got kids and they're not here. Well, they need to hear this same message. You got to take control of your kids. Stop letting your kids raise you, and you start raising your kids if you want to change the statistics. The second part of our discussion was about conflict and how to work through conflict. And it is fundamental, actually, and that is if you choose to do the right thing the right way for the right reason, expecting the right results to benefit others, at just stopping right there, you're going to immediately move to a plane where all conflicts can be worked out to in more of a win-win scenario than not. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mean that you can go around singing Kumbaya and expecting everybody to agree. That doesn't happen. But you ought to at least be able to stand on principle. And when you stand on principle, then the practice is predictable. It's when you don't stand on principle that the practice is also predictable. And I'm suggesting that we raise the principle in our homes so that when our children are in the classrooms, the teacher doesn't have to come in and become the disciplinarian. It is interesting to me that no matter how hard we try and no matter how much we talk about destiny, and destiny is a powerful word, and we should keep it in front of us at all times. But I'm absolutely certain that most of the time when you see our young people involved in a downward spiral, it's not because they are downward spiral oriented. It's because nobody ever helped them understand what an upward spiral looks like. And an upward spiral starts off by realizing that, one, you're not defined by your environment. You're not defined by your circumstance. You're not defined by your situation. You're not defined by your condition. You're not defined by the atmosphere that you come up in. You're not defined by any of those external things. What we have to do is work on the internal so that what your true definition can guide you upward instead of downward. The second item, which is equally as important, is that all behavior follows beliefs over a protracted period of time. So rather than investing all of this time, and we got great minds and great universities across this country that are all, in my opinion, making a bad investment because we keep trying to do behavior modification. I think that's insane. You can't modify a person's behavior for a protracted period of time unless you deal with their beliefs. So it might be time for us to become more proactive in the home and get a belief system that is foundationally strong, such that the belief system will then drive a better behavior system. And pretty soon you would find out that not only do our students excel, but the pyramids becomes just another feat that we've done in history. Well, it's been great, and we've enjoyed it. It's been a great day, and just working with the parents and with the students has been just absolutely marvelous. We got to do this again. We need to do it more frequently. Bring the family together. You got that?